was in the city. It was a Tuesday. That's when I saw it. A flash of orange, like a blur, and then two bright lights.
It looked like a giant accordion.
And then it just takes me. And the next thing, I'm someplace else. Someplace far, far away.
See, there's a pattern. It comes by exactly every 10 minutes. Right over there.
There it is!
Go, 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 go!
You still don't get it, do you? This thing goes way up. It's huge. You think the feds don't know about it? Of course they know about it. They're in on it.
I couldn't look away. It was beautiful.
It's called Orbit. And it's really out there.
It's out there, but we're here with Go Vote Omaha, presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Omaha. I'm Geri Simon, a League member and your host. Bus Rapid Transit is coming to Omaha, and we're going to talk about that with two guests in our program today, and that's Emily Baarson, the Strategic and Capital Projects Planner, and Jason Rose, the Outreach Coordinator for Omaha Metro Transit. So welcome.
Thank you.
Well, let's start out with Jason. Tell us, what is Bus Rapid Transit?
Yeah, so Bus Rapid Transit is it's a new kind of bus service, certainly not new as an idea, but it's new to the region. Ours has a name now, it's called Orbit. And so what Bus Rapid Transit does, it actually offers some of the convenience and the consistency that often accompanies light rail, but it does offer a similar that kind of service with the flexibility of a bus. And it does so at a fraction of the cost. And our first route is going to run from Westroads Mall to downtown, and we're going to serve about a dozen station pairs along the way. And what makes it rapid is we're serving these station pairs every 10 minutes during rush hour. So it's pretty fast, and we're able to do that through a variety of technological elements and roadway improvements. So a couple of them, first of all, stopping less frequently is a good way to save time. We have, like I said, about a dozen station pairs, and right now our buses stop every 3 blocks or so. So by spreading that out, we can speed up that trip. We're able to make the boarding process a lot faster with some different technology pieces at the stations. So we're doing prepaid boarding, which means a rider could go up to a kiosk, buy their ticket beforehand, and then just board the bus. And we're looking to pair that with a mobile app so people can purchase their ticket on their phone, do the same thing, and just board the bus. And when they do board, it's actually going to be a 3-door vehicle. So right now our buses have 1 door. So there's a little bit of a log jam there sometimes. But the 3 doors is much more space for people to get on and off board. And then the height of the bus floor is actually going to be the same height as the station platform. So it's level boarding. So that means once the 3 doors open, riders can get on and off board much quicker. And the same goes for wheelchairs, bikes, and strollers. It's easy to roll those right on board. And that's another element that we're putting in is actually bike racks on board the vehicle. So a biker could wheel their bike on and pop it up into the rack pretty quick. Right now, we have bus racks on the front of buses, and they're fantastic, but they do take a little time to get the bike up into. And then we're doing some roadway improvements. Transit signal priority is a technology that allows us to send a message to the traffic signal, like at busy intersections. So like 72nd, for instance, is a pretty busy intersection, and we're able to send a signal to hold the green light so we can pass through the intersection without waiting for the red. And then we're going to have some semi-exclusive lanes in portions of the route, so there'll be less of a battle with traffic. So that kind of all comprises what BRT is, what Orbit's going to look like. We have a few other amenities that we're going to fold in. I mentioned bike racks on board the vehicle. We're also going to host some bike racks at the stations. Heartland B-Cycle, the bike share program here in town, is going to have some sites east of 72nd Street. So if a rider didn't want to bring their bike, they could just rent a bike instead. And they're actually in the process of doubling their network. So there's going to be a lot more opportunity to get some bike rentals out there. We'll also have Wi-Fi at the stations.
Okay.
And then one of the big elements is real-time arrival. We're going to post up these digital signs that show next bus arriving in 5 minutes at all these stations, so people can anticipate when their bus is going to get there. And we'll eventually pair that as well with a mobile app so people can track their bus in real time.
Okay. Wi-Fi on the buses or just in the stations?
On the stations is what we're looking at right now. Yep.
Great. So Emily, right now you're designing it, and it's ready to, you've done the brand, it's ready to let people know about it. Where are we in the process of actually building it?
Well, we are actually in the final design process. So we went through the preliminary design back in 2015, and coming at that 10,000-foot view, and now we're actually kind of putting that into drawings that can be constructed. Okay. So we had the idea, and all of the different elements that Jason was talking about, those will be part of the final design, and what we're hoping is we'll begin construction actually in the spring of 2018. Okay. So getting closer, but yeah, still in the design phase.
Once construction begins, the timeline, what is the expectation?
We're expecting to open actually at the end of 2018. So pretty quick, and so we're getting things staged so that can flow really, really well.
Okay, have buses arrived yet, or?
They've not.
They've not,
Not
okay.
yet, but we'll let you know when they do.
Yeah,
Okay.
come back to the program.
Yes. So maybe we'll do one on the
that would be great.
So we'll do a live show there. Jason, one thing to think about is that other cities must have bus rapid transit. So which ones did you look at in developing it for Omaha?
Yeah, so it's certainly not a new idea. Bus rapid transit really got kicked off heavily in South America. A lot of really dense cities down there needed another way to move people around. So that then transferred into the States a little bit, and to really great success. Some of our regional cities, like Kansas City has some BRT, Denver, Minneapolis, Colorado Springs, and then you hear about some of the aspirational cities, for instance, like Austin and Portland and San Francisco, who also implement BRT in addition to a variety of other transportation options. And so those are cities that have invested pretty heavily in transit and in transportation, and so we're trying to kind of take a step in that direction and toward what we hope to be a much more robust transportation system that incorporates, obviously, BRT, other modes of transit, biking, walking, stuff like that.
Combining those, I think a lot of people don't think about combining walking, biking along with bus.
Absolutely.
For transit. So in those cities that have bus rapid transit, did they? I would assume that you want to increase ridership, of course, with this, as well as capacity. So did it increase ridership in those communities?
We know from a few cities that they actually did see significant increase related to BRT. Cleveland is one example. I know they actually saw 47% increase on the route that they enhanced with BRT. So we do have some of those statistics. A lot of what systems see as a result are numbers that increase across the system because BRT adds to the efficiency of the rest of the system, and that's what we hope we'll see here as well.
Okay. So Jason, I guess the big question is, Omaha's pretty much been a car-driven town with limited public transportation, good public transportation given that it is a car city. Sure. So why do we need BRT?
Yeah, great. Well, you nailed it. Traditionally, Omaha is very car-centric for sure, but we're starting to see populations increase. We're starting to see traffic not really lighten a whole lot. And we're starting to see a lot of populations moving to really dense areas of town. So people are kind of flocking to midtown, to downtown to live in these dense places. And we want to be able to provide for them a transportation option that doesn't require them to own a car or to use their car all the time. So Dodge Street, for instance, is the first route that we're running on. And a lot of people use Dodge every day, and there's no room to widen the road. So we have to pull in as many people we can into that space in an efficient way. And certainly buses are one way to do that. Single occupancy cars especially, they take up a pretty immense amount of space relative to the amount of people that they can transport. Right. Whereas if you have a lot of those folks on the bus, we're moving a lot more people in a much smaller space. So it frees up the roadway really for the rest of the drivers out there as well. It's a benefit to both. And so we're trying to encourage transit, but also encourage these other modes of transportation, biking, walking, and we're pretty excited that this can do that. And one thing that bus rapid transit also does is it really attracts a lot of folks to the city. We're finding that millennials and baby boomers in particular are wanting to go to places that they can walk, that they can bike, and they can bus around. And so we're attracting populations, we're attracting a workforce, but we're also attracting businesses and economic development. The projections that we have from an early stage show that for every dollar we invest in this project, we'll see an $8 return, at least an $8 return on that investment. So we're looking at about $240 million that wouldn't have come into the city otherwise. So it's pretty astounding a number just looking at economic development there. And we're also just kind of seeing a demand for enhanced transit across the board. One of the early analyses that we did identified Dodge as kind of an underconnected corridor. So the reason we chose it is we're trying to connect people to entertainment districts, healthcare centers, education facilities, things of that nature.
And get them there quickly.
Exactly, yep.
So in terms of economic development, and you talked about the Emily, what kind of businesses do you expect to kind of fill in on this corridor on Dodge?
Yeah, that's a great question.
It's pretty dense already.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I think there's still room for more.
Okay.
I mean, we almost have to look at it in a different perspective. There are two different, I think, economic benefits. One is kind of community-wide. We have the opportunity for increasing density and providing different opportunities for people for work, and even giving developers potential for increasing the number of units that they can build. Using the principles of transit-oriented development, communities really have maximized development potential around transit. And transit-oriented development, or TOD, is kind of like what it sounds. It's kind of enhancing development around a transit station. So what kind of things you can do within a quarter mile or a half a mile of a transit station, and giving people opportunities to live, work, and play within that district. That is really an opportunity that we have yet to tap into here. So I think community-wide, there's lots of potential there. And the city actually received a grant for technical assistance to develop a TOD policy, and we're still in the midst of that. Metro is cooperating with the city on that, but in places that BRT has been very successful in bringing development, cities have really led the charge, and so I'm really excited about how the city is cooperatively, bringing that to the BRT project. And then on the other side, the individual opportunities that come along with this. If a family's budget, 60% of a family's monthly budget is spent on transportation, food, and housing. If you don't spend as much on transportation, if you're not paying for your automobile insurance or having a second car or whatever that is, you have more freedom in your monthly budget. So there's a great potential directly there for individuals to also get benefit out of this.
And dollars to go in the economy.
Yeah, we like that. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Okay, well, Jason, let's talk about the branding.
Sure.
It's Orbit now, and it's got a logo and a certain color that goes with it. So talk about that.
Yeah, so orange is the primary color that we're using, and we've had some folks ask about why we went the orange direction in Nebraska, and so one thing that is kind of an industry standard is to brand a BRT system in a very unique way. It's a unique design, and it's a distinct product, so we want to make sure that it's viewed as such. So we gave it a kind of a unique color and a unique name.
And we're going to put the graphic up there on the screen so that people can see too.
Yeah, so orange is a color that we've used before. We rebranded to Metro Transit quite a few years ago, and blue and white are the primary colors, and we used orange kind of intermittently throughout that. And so we know it worked really well, and looks good in comparison to kind of the rest of the brand. So yeah, that's part of the reason we went with the orange, to make it really distinct and make it pop and bright, and it certainly does so. The video shows an example of what one of the wrapped buses looks like, and it's pretty bright in person. So we're excited to see him in real life.
And you've already also got bus bench advertising and already promoting Orbit, so people will start to recognize.
Yeah, trying to get the word out and get people excited about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Emily, one thing I think people might want to know is, are fares going to be affected, and how is this going to fit in with the other public transportation that Metro offers?
Right. At this point, we are imagining that the fare system will remain consistent. So you will be able to seamlessly go from the fixed route service to BRT. So folks won't have to worry about a brand new change or something that's that is completely different, figuring something different out. We also, so just to kind of step back a sec and see how the system will fit with BRT in general, in 2015, Metro reanalyzed the routes and actually developed a plan for our existing routes to kind of feed well with the BRT along Dodge. So that whole process was set into motion knowing that BRT was coming in 2018. So we hope that even with some small tweaks, the system will work really well with the enhancement on Dodge.
Okay. Okay. Another question I'm sure that people have, and when you mentioned Westroads, it makes you think of the transfer station there and parking spaces for people. So Jason, will we have a park and ride kind of dedicated places for people to park?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, so we have a dedicated space in Westroads. The transit center is in the northwest corner of that plot of land. And so we have secured some parking over there. And we're exploring other options along the route because we do know people don't just go from Westroads to downtown, but travel along the way. So we're looking at some other options along that route because we do want to offer the opportunity for folks to leave their car and to leave some of the associated costs that come with the car sort of in the parking lot there. And when we do that currently, we have 14 park and ride lots around the city, trying to encourage folks to again, leave their car, leave some of that cost behind. And what we find is that a lot of folks really enjoy the trip. You know, you're not spending time driving, but you have a lot more freedom to be more productive than being behind the wheel. You know, you can check your email or read the paper or not do any of that.
Take a nap.
Yeah.
Take a nap.
So
Listen to music.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of cost savings that go into that, and public transit tends to be to increase public health as well. Those kind of go hand in hand. So there's a lot of benefits to gain from increasing ridership citywide, whether you ride the bus or whether you don't.
Okay. And another question I'm sure people wonder is that transit systems typically do not pay for themselves. There's taxpayer money that has to be involved, has to be subsidized. So how are we paying for it? Are tax dollars going toward this project, Emily, or?
Well, the project is being funded specifically by a mix of different federal funding and some local charitable contributions. So the majority of it is being paid through a Tiger Fund, which is a federal grant program, a competitive program that Metro was awarded $15 million in 2014. That, again, will fund most of it, some other federal funds additionally that are specifically set aside for this project. And then local contributions from the Sherwood Foundation, Peter Kiewit Foundation, also Nebraska Environmental Trust, as well as MUD. We have in-kind contributions from our regional planning organization, MAPA, and then also the City of Omaha, and Heartland B-Cycle also is a partner with Metro.
Okay, great. Let's see. You mentioned, Jason, the other major businesses, medical, educational, on Dodge, shopping facilities. So what kind of relationship does Metro have with these organizations?
Sure. Yeah, so we have some really great relationships with the organizations along the route, and we're continually to try to build more. To give a couple examples, we have past programs with UNO and UNMC. UNMC has a program called Travel Smart, where they're trying to encourage folks to bus, bike, and walk to their campus, and that alleviates a lot of the pressure on them for parking as well. They can use their space for medical buildings and education facilities. With UNO, any staff, faculty, or staff member can ride the bus for free anytime all over the city. All they do is swipe their MAV card. It's called the MAV Ride program, and since we implemented that particular program, ridership has increased significantly every year. Last year we had about 110,000 rides to campus or anywhere around the system. And if you think about that in terms of what impact that many cars would have on the roadway, that's a significant relief for the streets of Omaha. So we have some really good relationships, and yeah, continuing to try to build some more.
Okay, and so for people to understand, as part of these relationships, the organizations are actually contributing to the cost of providing that free bus ride to their employees or students, or okay. So we hope that it might expand to other businesses.
Yeah, we're finding a lot of organizations are again experiencing an influx in people and a demand for more services, and parking does take up quite a bit of that. So if they can pull back from parking and reallocate to other places, a lot of folks prefer to do that.
Right. It's a great incentive for employers to give their employees.
Yes,
It really is. So.
absolutely. Especially when people are looking to reduce the carbon footprint, and
Right. Yep. And
bus service will do that.
Absolutely. That's another piece that we didn't really tackle yet. But yeah, the environmental impacts are going to be, significantly lowered. We're going to run these buses on compressed natural gas, so the emissions are going to be a lot different. And the more we can move people out of their car and into the bus itself, the more clear we can make it.
Okay. So this project really makes Metro larger, and so will Metro continue to, is it going to run the system?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
We're actually really thrilled about this, and it's going to be, I think, a start of creating that more robust transit system that we envision in the next, hopefully, few years,
Okay.
5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 year period, okay. Okay, great. Another question, I know we might put up the slide we have about amenities up there on the screen, but I know people want to know, can you talked about bicycles can go onto the buses. What about wheelchairs or motorized assistant chairs, and then animals? Can pets or other than service dogs go on the bus?
So for animals, our policy across the board right now is that any animal can come on board the bus as long as it's kennelled. And if it's a service dog, it doesn't have to be. So that will remain the same on Orbit as well. Yeah, I mentioned bikes on board, which is super exciting. And we're going to be able to allow more bikes on board the vehicle than we are on the front of the buses. So the capacity for bike riders is going to be greater on board the vehicle there. And there's a lot of different mechanisms that can help wheelchairs kind of tie down onto the bus. Like right now, we have to deploy a ramp, and the driver has to get up and help kind of make sure the wheelchair is secure. And there are some other things we're investigating to allow wheelchairs to be able to board on and kind of secure themselves, and then get off a little easier. So yes, absolutely, there's going to be space for everyone on board.
Okay, and you mentioned free Wi-Fi in the stations for people too, and I'm sure weather protected the stations along the way?
Yeah, and that's one of the big pieces about these stations. They're going to be a lot different than our shelters. And they're broad roof, very, very much weather protected. We actually had a lot of public engagement throughout the process to determine what these stations are going to look like. Early on, some of the early designs, they were very aesthetic and artistic and very cool looking, but weather protection was a big concern that we heard back. So we went back to the drawing board, and it's a much broader roof, and again, the kiosks at the stations and will kind of help that process too. But yeah, we have the station designs are on our website if anyone wants to
Take a look at those,
Yeah.
okay. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? Let's talk a little bit more about reducing that carbon footprint, since we have a little bit of time. I think that's one thing when you mentioned that people want to be encouraged to walk and bus and use bicycles too, that especially younger people and our utilities are interested in reducing the carbon footprint with climate change. So talk about how this is really going to help and can encourage people to support that. Emily or Jason?
I think in general, our ridership averages in about 3.7 million trips a year. So if you think about what that really means as an impact, like Jason was even talking about, ridership with UNO, with the number of students who are and staff who are taking the bus now, that just the impact I think is. You can't necessarily, if you think about that in those large terms, it's hard to even grasp. But think about this number of cars and what that, incomplete combustion, what that actually would do.
Right.
So I think, the trend toward providing more and more trips on transit and allowing people to have options, that's what we really need to do as a city. We know that there's been a lot of talk about attainment in the past few weeks even, discussing that. And I think, this is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, and we know that single occupancy cars are one of the single greatest impact factors to environmental emissions. And the more we can, again, pull people out of those and get them on bikes on the bus, especially when our buses are going to be emitting cleaner in the future, that's a step in that direction. We actually are doing some things to the rest of our fleet as well to reduce that. traditionally our buses run on diesel, and a lot of them we've kind of transitioned into using clean diesel, which is much cleaner burning fuel, as you might imagine. And we actually just got the go-ahead from our board to purchase 9 new Moby vans. So Moby's our paratransit service, also run on compressed natural gas. So, so we're kind of folding some of these new elements into it to try to make the fleet a lot cleaner, and then bring more people to the service, so we can reduce the collective carbon footprint.
We've got just a couple of minutes left, but I did want to ask, one thing we talked about was that the fare structure would stay the same. Hours of operation. What typically will we see for when this will run?
Right. So right now it's going to run about the same as the Route 2, which runs along the same route. And that goes from about 4 in the morning till about 1 in the morning. So a pretty good span of time.
Almost 24
pretty
hours.
Close,
So. And do you see expansion or helping with things, events, big events like the College World Series and some of the things going downtown at Old
Absolutely,
Market?
yeah. So we currently provide a good service to the College World Series right now as a circulator, and we're hoping to attract more people to be able to stay along the route and then just take the bus on into big events like that.
Take the bus on home. Okay. All right. If our viewers would like more information, you're having more information come out as you're planning and designing going forward. So what can we expect to see as far as continuing to keep pace with the rollout of the service?
Yeah, so we're going to keep going out to the community and talking about it and trying to get the word out. Okay. Some of the next big information pieces that are going to come out are probably going to be later in the fall, as far as more final design ideas, and then into the spring as well. So we're kind of getting to the point where we're getting some final decisions made, and as we get into construction, we'll certainly be notifying everyone about the impact and what they might be seeing there.
Because we're going to see construction right on Dodge. There'll be a dedicated lane, right, for the, or how is that going to work?
Well, there will be different spots where there'll be staging construction, and certainly different areas where the road will, I don't know that it'll be fully shut down at any point, but there will be some information that we'll be presenting about, what will impact to drivers. So for sure, you'll be seeing more of us and keeping everybody posted on that.
So if someone really wants more information, the website, the web address for Metro?
Yes, so rideorbit.com will take you straight to our Orbit webpage, and then ometro.com is the general page.
The general page, okay, great. All right, well, thank you both for being here. Appreciate you talking about Orbit, and look forward to seeing the buses being on the road, using that service. So for the League of Women Voters, I'm Geri Simon, reminding you to inform yourself about the issues, and at election time, go vote, Omaha.